Okay, so here we have a GPSMAP64SX. I've turned it on, and you can see that just now it got rid of that question mark. That tells me I have a lock on where I'm standing with GPS satellites. Now, a lot of us do pre-commercial thinning, and we like to measure areas when we're marking out, riveting the boundary lines. And another part is doing strips, which are just lines. Sometimes we follow trails where the harvest equipment went, and other times we compass them. But we need a length, and we usually, if it's a fairly sized block, we usually go 50 meters apart with those lines across the block. And so we need to GPS those lines and boundaries, and bring the data back to the office and put into a program and find the areas within those strips, so men can be paid based on their area that they've cut. So anyway, this is a little demo on the GPS that I'm using, and you can see the buttons down here. There's quit, enter, mark, find, page, menu, and then there's the in and out buttons. They just zoom in and out on the map. So let's set this up so we can measure some ground. We can set the units of our GPS under settings. There's a thing called units, and hit enter, and I've had it set for metric and temperature and so on. Now we can come out of there, and your maps you can choose in this setting. I'll select map, and there's all your maps in here. I have some custom maps in here. I've got them turned on, where it says enable all. And some of these other maps are just from Garmin. What I'll do sometimes, my custom maps, I have a GPS map software that I load in there, and that's where those are enabled in here. They're not track files, they're actually just maps, GPS maps. And so you activate them through this menu item. And you can quit and go out of there, and you can set your text size and zoom in here. Alright, and don't bother them too much. Track section, and there's where you want to turn your logger on and off when you're measuring ground. There's other settings like record method, and I use time, and then I set the interval between the points that it gathers as 3 seconds. Down here. Now right now, do not record means that I'm not taking any points to make a map of any kind, or track. So what I want to do is turn that on if I'm going to measure ground. So I've highlighted it. Hit enter. Now I want to see it on the screen while I'm mapping or walking the perimeter of this. I want to walk around a trail here and then find the area of it. So I'll turn it on here with the record and show on map. So I'll hit the enter button, and then now what I can do is back out of that and go to my map, and it shows my cursor there, and as I walk it'll draw a line. Anytime I want to reset the track log to 0, I go into here. If I want to start a fresh perimeter or something, or a line, strip line. Say maybe I started at the wrong spot and I want to start over again, instead of going through and changing or deleting the track and all that stuff through the other menus. I can just reset it right here. And it says, do you really want to clear the track log? And I say yes, because I want to start a fresh track log. I had been logging some points there without moving there for a few minutes, so I want to start fresh. And now I have still this on, record and show on map. So I want to go back to my map with the quit button, and there's my cursor. I can zoom out. And now what I want to do is walk this perimeter. So we should see a red line form here. There you can start to see the line. I zoomed in. That's your tracks from the GPS is recording. That's what that line is. So as you're walking, every 3 seconds it's getting a point from the satellites for your position. I have to push that cursor button there to turn the light on every once in a while. I think there's a setting to keep that on, but you don't want that on all day, because you only get about half battery life. You only really want that to come on when you're pushing buttons. So I'm just walking around here. I'll continue on there and turn the recording back on after a few moments to show you the end of the map. I'm on the edge of the road here now. I'm still mapping. I'll be going up to that buggy. Usually when you start measuring a thinning block, you'll always have ribbons, so you know exactly where you started, where your first ribbon was tied, so you come back to that ribbon when you want to finish your measurement. So we've just got a little ways to go. I'm just, as I say, keep getting that cursor pad there every once in a while to bring the light on, because it's hard to see the screen with the camera recording. This is early morning too, so it's not the best light because the sun's low in the sky. Anyway, we are coming to the end of our measurement. Pretty much right where I stood when I started. So now what I want to do is quit out of the map and go to track manager, or I mean setup, and then go into tracks and enter. Then I want to turn the logging off, so do not record is my selection. Enter. Okay, now I want to save that, so I hit the quit button and go out of there, and I go into track manager, and then I see where it says current track. Well, I hit enter on that, and it says save track, and that's what I do. I save the track, and here I can give it a file name for that track. So I will go down here and get my backspace button and hit that to clear that line, and then I'll name it B1 for block 1, for instance. And I highlight the B, hit the enter button, then go up, highlight the 1, enter, then down at the bottom, hit done. Okay, and clear current track. Well, yes, because I've just saved this, so it's in memory, and I hit yes. Now, another thing I have to do, if I want to see that on my screen when I'm, say, laying out strips, I highlight it and hit enter, and then I want to view it. No, I want to go down to show on map. I'll hit enter on that, and I can change colors if I want to, but I never do. And you could delete it if you didn't want that one, but anyway, I'll get out of that with quit and go back to the map screen, and there's my block. And I'll just zoom out a little bit to see it all. Now, I didn't use the area calculation app. I'm just going to find that area in my program, ExpertGPS, when I get back at the computer, the laptop that I use for making my maps. So now we're going to go and do a strip. So I have a trail I'm just going to walk and call that my strip. And we'll go to that point and be back in a few seconds. Okay, here's the trail I want to make a strip out of. So now I'll go to setup and select track again. Enter. I gotta turn my logger on, so I'll hit enter on that. And then I'll say show on map as I'm walking. Then I'll quit out of that, back to my map screen, and it'll draw that strip line as I'm walking. Apologize for the shaky camera, but I'm walking on uneven ground here. It's crusty snow, so this is what it is. But the only real thing you're looking for anyway is that line being drawn. So if you can not get dizzy watching the video, I haven't got far to go. There. We're here, so now I gotta go back into Track Manager, or sorry, Setup, and go to open the track log, enter, and now I gotta turn that off. Do not record, enter, then exit, and to Track Manager, and then click on current track, save that track, and now we're back to naming it again. I'll just go over to my backspace button here and hit enter to get rid of that, and then I'll just call it strip 1, so S1. Find the S here. S. One, and then down on done, and then it says current track saved. Clear current track, yes. And then I want to turn that on so I can see it on my map. So this one, click, show on map, and then quit out of there to go to my map. And I zoom out, see my strip in the middle of my block. So pretty easy stuff. Okay, now let's say we're roadside with our block. It follows one leg of the boundary line follows the road, and we want to usually work off roads when we're marking out sitting blocks for crews. And so we'll need a compass to run lines if we have no trails, to keep them relatively parallel and roughly 40-50 meters apart when you're doing it. I usually run them around 40 in most instances, unless it's wide open. And you can see this wood's head in the video has already been thinned out, and it's actually the second time it's thinned out. But anyway, we want to use a compass. So this is a compass that is familiar to a lot of folks. I can get it just right there. It's a Sunto. I don't know if that's, the label's probably upside down on it there in this light. You can't see it too good. Right there is a Sunto. And on the back it has a set screw, a little set screw. Where is that? Right here, to set the declination. In this part of western New Brunswick, we'll set that to 16 degrees west, and that is almost impossible to see on that thing. That's right there. And there's a little tool on your string that comes with your compass. It's kind of a little screwdriver, and you use that to turn the dial, and you want it to 16 degrees west. It'll show west up here in this upper corner of the scale there. So you want this to go from 0 up to 16. This other thing hanging down with an arrow on it, black thing, is for doing inclination, finding the degrees of incline. And then your regular compass arrow is that red and white tipped one. And the other outline in red is the bearing you want to set on your compass to walk at. And so let's look at our GPS map. Okay. So we're right there, and let's kind of look at overall what that map shape looks like. Let me zoom out a little again. Anyway, so see my arrow that I'm moving around, and look up top. It'll show distance and bearing on the right, distance on the left in meters, and then your bearing on the right. So as I move that, that changes up there. So that's where you'll get your bearing from where you're standing and towards where that arrow that I move around. That will be your bearing. And you look at the shape of your block, it kind of looks like the bottom end of that kind of running east-west. So that's probably the best bearing. So you would set that arrow to run around 275, roughly. (275 degrees). And that'll be your bearing for all the blocks. You'll mark your strips out. Like you won't be following your trails because none exist in some blocks. So you get that, and then you just set that on your compass, 275 degrees. So here we are, and that (275) is right here, due west. So then you will rotate your compass until, actually this way, until your red compass arrow lines up with that red mark on the base of your compass. And that's how you know the direction you're going is what you set the heading to on your compass. And that'll be for running your strips. So anyway, that's a little introduction there to running lines with your GPS. One more thing is I wanted to show just locating corners of your property, or maybe some spots that are kind of sparse and you might want to know kind of where they are in your property. So we'll look at that next. I've overlaid a map on there with all the property lines on it, so that'll help us find the corner. Yeah, it's not for using for surveying. This is just to locate. We're not surveyors out here, us people in the forestry business. Most of us are just foresters or technicians. So we don't use it to survey, we just use it to find. And pretty useful to help locate lines for marking just ribbons. It's not boundary lines of properties, just boundary lines of our work areas. So I have property lines here is very faint on here. It's kind of a light gray color, and it kind of runs from the tip of that white cursor to the lower left. So I'm walking up here to what I think is a boundary line, and let me see, I'm within range of it. This is say not a surveyor grade GPS, and these maps I got from the government website aren't always 100% accurate where they're sitting and versus what's on the ground. So I'm actually just using this to locate the line, not to mark anything, because I'm not a surveyor. And so anyway, this helps me find the corner, and here's my corner post, and my spots run down through there. Some ribbons on it, so it helped me find that corner post if there's evidence that's kind of obscured or getting pretty old. It comes in handy for that. That's why I use these. And also, when you're out in the middle of nowhere and unfamiliar with properties that you're on, but you know what the PID number or property identification number is, then this will help you. Sometimes you're just on wood roads and you don't know exactly what property you're at or where the location is because you haven't never been there before, and so this comes in handy for doing that, locating. And I apologize for the line not being very bright there, but that cursor is, the white cursor is pointing on the line, the tip of it. But you can, in your GPS, you can change the color settings of those lines so they show up better. I just never did because I didn't want it to interfere with my GPS work and get lines going everywhere. But anyway, it's a pretty good deal there. The government puts all those property lines on their website, and it's in the form of a shapefile, so you can bring it into software and then download it onto your GPS. And so that's what I use. I also use streams and roads and that stuff all on there, and it's all helpful stuff. I'll zoom out there so it gets a little more clear. I don't know, probably still can't see that little faint line. That's at the very tip of that white pointer, and the blue pointer is actually where I'm standing. So there's a road, you'll see a road, faint line up towards the north end, or north, towards a little bit towards the northwest. I'm standing on that road and then the corner of the property. So, and there's our block that we laid out there, that little red area there, polygon. And that, if I go over, click on the corner there of that, and it tells us it's, what, 174 meters away. So that the property lines do come in handy for areas you're not familiar with. Anyway, that's it for this. The next segment will be taking those files and putting them on the computer and making a map. Okay. So here we are, we want to get our files off the GPS. So we'll open the folder under File Explorer and Computer, and then we find our GPS. We just treat it like it's a disk. We're connected to USB to the computer. I open that up, we find a folder called Garmin. We open that up again. find the GPS folder, GPX, not S, GPX. Open it. And there's our files that we collected out in the field. Block 1 and strip 1. We just use Control and mouse click on them and drag them over to our folder we want to save on the computer. I've got already done over here. So then we won't need those anymore, so we can delete those two files and close that. Now we open up ExpertGPS, open that up and go under File, and we will open Block 1, open that up. Okay, and if you use the select tool up here, click on a line there, and you can, it says the acreage here in hectares in the table, but it's not closed yet. But you can also, if it's real jagged up the line, you can clean up the line by going under Track and Simplify. Did it a couple times, and it reduces the number of points around the track. So you can do that, and then now what you want to do is you want to close the track to create a polygon. So it's there, closed. That doesn't change this area, it just closes it. In case you want to export it to another file format, it'll be a closed polygon. So then you can export that if you wish. File, export, and I chose block 1, and I changed the file format to GPX 1.0 file format. That's more compatible with other software. There's other options here. There's file format 1.1, which is not as compatible. You have Google Earth, you have shape files and CAD files and so on, but we're just going to use GPX file format 1.0. So I've already done this, so I will click out of that, and then I will close this file, and I'm not going to save changes to that, and then I'll open the strip, which is under Track S1, which is here, and I'll click on it, and I can also reduce the number of points on that to clean up the lot. So hit this a couple times, and you already know that the distance is 78 meters, 78.77. It's in the table here beside it, track table. And again, I can export that, export data on map, and I called it woodlot -S1 for strip 1. So I've already done that. Now I can close that, and I don't want to save it, I want to keep the original file. I've already saved my edits to a different file. So I'm clicking now on that, then I can open my two files I just created, and they're here together. Now I've got my block 0.41, that's track B1, and strip 1 is this one here labeled, and this is 78.76 meters. Now I can extend that on down to the line there because it doesn't look like it's quite touching. I can use this track tool, and I click the end point, and then I click where I want it to end here. Double click it. Double click ends the edit of the track. And so now I can find the area of this strip here, the smaller piece. I use the tools, shape tool, and then I just trace it out. it will snap to the existing track underneath it. Makes it easier to trace it. And double click it. And I don't need to save it, but I will note that it's 0.16 hectares. So I want to remember that and close it. And then what I can do is put a note there, tools, note tool, and click anywhere where I want to put that. So label it as 0.16 hectares and click, and there it is. And so you subtract that area from the total area, and let's see, you can just get rid of that track. Just right click on it and delete the shape, and you can get rid of that. You don't need one shape on top of the other. So now you know under track, list of tracks, that block 1 is 0.41 hectares in total. So the remainder of that would be 0.25. So you just go with your note tool, click that anywhere you want to make a note of what that area is. So 0.25 hectares. That's okay. So now you can save your map to a file if you want, under File, Save As. So let's print a map. We have our areas all on here. Let's go under Map, Menu, Print Map. And we give it a title here, and I give it woodlot, and I change the print scale to 1 to 500, so it'll fill this page. And I turn the north arrow on, and scale bar is large. So let's do a preview to see what that looks like. There's the large scale bar, and there's your north arrow with declination. It'll show it's about 16 degrees west. That's what this arrow going left is. And north arrow is this way. That will be correspond to this edge of the map here. That will be what you would use set your compass by. So north is up here, and anyway, here's your map. Now if I wanted to print this, I can go to the print dialog, and I'm just going to send it to a file, a PDF file for now, and then I can store it on the computer and print it later. So I just go OK there, and I just choose where I want to send it to, and name the file. And there we are, woodlot map, named it, and I'll save it to that. And once it saves, it will come up on my screen. I'll have Adobe Acrobat file showing the map, and there's my scale bar down here again, and my north arrow here. This is magnetic north, this line, as I said, that's 16 degrees west. So that's what you set your compass declination to before you were mapping out in the woods for strip lines or whatever. And so I've got this as a file. I can print it anytime I want. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And I can close the map dialog out. And pretty basic stuff. No rocket science. Other things that you can do is under options, main preferences. You can set your coordinate format, New Brunswick, stereographic. And so to do that, you just add format, and it's under North American, Canada, NAD 1983 CR or CSRS grids. And under here, you'll find there's a New Brunswick one down here, NAD 83 CSRS New Brunswick stereographic, and that's the one that you choose. And that's what comes up here. Now the other ones are default ones like WGS84. That's what your default setting is on your GPS anyway. But in order to do these maps or to export files to other programs that New Brunswick forestry companies might want to use, you have to use the export as New Brunswick stereographic format. So I will just click cancel there because I've already got these settings. Now if I wanted to export this in another file format, I will close out for now that file. And then I will open up just the block. So woodlot is the block. I'm just going to then open this up, and then I can go File, Export, Data on Map. And then I can change this to a polygon shapefile with no elevation. Or you can do a Z with elevation. I generally use the no elevation one. You'd use the elevation one if you're going to use it later on to make a 3D surface. We won't be doing that, we're just using the XY map. And Z would be your third dimension, but you're not using it for our maps. So polygon, and then I would save it here as woodlot. And just, it's going wrong there, and I'm just going to save. So that's shapes all saved as shapefile. And you can use it in different GIS programs that way. Forestry companies usually want it in shapefiles because they use ArcView. ArcView is the program that uses those file formats, but other programs will import it. So that's it in a nutshell.